Hello there guys, Francis Gray here, and recently I made 3 videos of Christmas baubles based on the cult classic Tim Burton film The Nightmare Before Christmas. And in this video we're going to take those 3 videos and we're going to sandwich them together to make one new video for all the people that haven't watched part 1, part 2 or part 3 or they just don't really want to go looking for the different videos. So in this video they can just sit back, have a nice drink or relax and just watch all 10 baubles being made one after the other. So the day I'm recording this, it's the day before New Year, so if anybody is watching this, I hope you have a very happy 2024 and I hope it's a lot better than the last few years that we've had. So sit back and enjoy, and I will see you at the end. Okay guys, so I went ahead and I found these in my local B&M store, and they are the characters from the ever awesome Nightmare Before Christmas animated film from Tim Burton. So I figured when I saw these would make awesome Christmas baubles or Christmas decorations. So as you can see there, we've got Jack Skeleton in the Santa suit, we've got Sally, we've got Jack just as normal, and then we have the dog, the ghost dog, and then we have Oggie Boogie. So in order to make these work, I had a look around and I also found these, which are just create your own Christmas craft baubles. So they come in a pack of 4. And as you can see here, we have too many characters. But thankfully, when I bought these, my daughter said that she had 2 spare from a craft project that she made a few years ago. And as you can see there, they aren't scratched or anything. So these will work really nice. So yeah, I can see these working brilliantly. So let's go ahead and open these up and have a look at how they fit inside. So these are all universally the same size, so as long as all characters fit in, we should be good to go. Okay, so those are the biggest figures, so obviously Sally will fit by default. Where you going, Jack? So I can see these working brilliantly, so let's go ahead and crack on with the build. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and take some measurements on the inside circumference of the baubles, and I'm going to see if I can 3D print a static base that will be universal for all the baubles. Okay, let's get 3D printing.
Later that same evening.
Okay, so after some measuring of the diameter of those baubles, this is what I made in a software called Matter Control, and after printing them out I give them a quick simple test. They fit fine, so yeah, next stage is into the spray booth and give it a base coat of black. Okay, so now that these are nicely base coated, let's start with the first build. Step 1. Jack Skeleton. So I'm going to start things off by super gluing Jack to the new 3D printed base. In order to do that, I'm just going to use some regular everyday super glue and then just make sure that it gets into all the nooks and crannies underneath, and then I'm going to squish him right bang in the centre.
3 hours later.
So now that he's glued nicely in position, for the next stage I'm going to go in with some white from Model Air, and I'm going to go ahead with a nice detailing fin brush, and I'm going to add some of those white streaks that we all know that Jack has on his suit, because the version that you get in the blister pack, it's just all one tone black, and as we all know, Jack likes to rock a nice striped suit. So now that Jack's looking a little bit more like Jack, for the next stage we need to go ahead and recreate the scene. So the scene I want to recreate is the iconic graveyard that we see Jack wander in a few times in the film. So in order to create that look, we're going to go ahead and we're going to 3D print some tombstones off. So I went on Thingiverse and I found just a generic, very simple, basic tombstone set, and I decided to pick 2 or 3 of the ones that I really liked, and then I decided to 3D print them out. And at the moment now, after a good sanding, I'm giving it a base coat of black. Now the reason I'm going for black is because it's going to show those dry brush greys when we go ahead and lighten this up in a moment. So I'm going to kick things off with going in with a natural grey from Model Colour, and I'm going to go in with just a regular brush and I'm just going to give it a couple of coats just as a nice foundation to build up upon.
A few moments later.
So I decided to go ahead and print off a RIP, and this was a little bit tricky to get it to fit to scale, but thankfully it worked really nice. Basically just to add a little bit more interest to the gravestone. Originally I was just going to freehand something, but I just felt like it looked a little bit too simple, so yeah, good old 3D printer to the rescue. And now I'm going to go in with a light grey from Model Colour, and I'm going to use a fixed stipple makeup brush, and I'm going to take off most of the paint and then just use a little tiny bit to add a nice edge highlight to all the parts. Now this really goes a long way to make this look more eye-catching and a lot more 3D. So yeah, good old makeup brush wins again. So it is at this moment I then realised that Jack doesn't have any nostrils, and in the movie he does. So I'm going in with a very fine detailing brush and some black from Model Air, and I'm going to go ahead and recreate those nostrils. So for the next part I'm going to go in with some regular standard milliput, and I'm going to mix equal measures of part A, part B, and then we can use this to go ahead and model the terrain of the graveyard. So now that the clay's on there, for the next stage I'm going to go in with just some water on the end of my finger, and I'm going to go ahead and smooth the top surface of milliput. This clay works really good with water. It seems to just like really smooth the top surface. I wouldn't go too crazy with the water because it can get a little bit mushy if you like, but just a little tiny bit to just rub on, it really makes this smooth out beautifully. And now in the movie there's these raised wavy patterns that seem to flow everywhere, so in order to recreate those I'm going to go in with a wire brush and I'm just going to get where I can, and I'm just going to make some nice groove lines, and then that should go a long way to making this look a little bit more screen accurate.
What?
And next I'm going to go in with a sharp scalpel, and I'm going to get into the areas that I couldn't reach with the brush, and we're going to go ahead and leave a few thicker, deeper seam recesses, and that should, when we go to head and create like a black wash later on, that will help run into those deeper grooves, and that'll give a lot more contrast as we go. And while the clay is still moist, we're going to go ahead and we're going to squish that rest in peace tombstone into place, and then we're going to go ahead and add a little bit more milliput around the sides just so it looks like it's dug into the ground and the ground's built up around it and it looks a little bit more secure. And once that is being modelled, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a pumpkin. Now I went ahead and I 3D printed these and I painted these off camera just to try and save a bit of time. and they turned out really nice. So I know in the scene where he's walking through the gravestone, the graveyard, we don't really see any pumpkins, but I really want this to come across as like Halloween town. So I thought, why not just add a few little extra pumpkins to some of the dioramas, and hopefully that'll sell the illusion.
You get the idea.
So once all that was left to fully harden and fully dry, for the next stage I'm going to go in with just some everyday black acrylic, and same again, a stipple paintbrush, and I'm going to take my time and I'm going to make sure I get into all the little nooks and crannies of the base, because this is a very important part. I have to make sure that all surface areas are coated, probably at least 2 coats, because there's no point adding detail and to then find out that you've missed a bit. So this is really important that I get into every little square inch of this part of the model. And once all that's been left to dry, for the next stage I'm going to go in with a natural grey from Model Colour, and I'm going to use the same makeup brush, and I'm going to add a top surface layer, but I'm not going to cake it on because I don't want to disturb the undertone blacks that's run into the recesses that we added earlier on. So yeah, so this is just like a top dry brush, if you like, of the grey, and then but to the eye you can see these black recesses, much like the what you see in the movie.
Alright.
Okay, so before I start adding some of the more detailed parts to this, I'm going to go ahead and super glue this to the underside so we have that dome shape that'll go inside the bauble nicely. And in order to stick this, I'm just going to go in with just some regular everyday super glue. Okay guys, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave this a couple of hours to fully dry.
6.5 hours later.
And for the next part I'm going to go in with some white from Model Air and the same makeup brush, and now I'm going to add a very light dry brush to the centre part of the model, so it starts like brighter and then it like blends out darker, so the eye is attracted to the centre piece, which is obviously Jack standing there. So yeah, so don't want to go too crazy with this, just a very light dry brush right bang in the middle. And now I'm going to go in with some sick green from Game Colour, and I'm going to go in with a tiny amount, and I'm just going to paint the stalk parts of the pumpkins. I'm not 100% sure if they are titled stalks, so forgive me if I'm wrong about that, but seriously, what else could there be? Stems, maybe? I don't know. If you know, let me know in the comments below.
Right.
Okay, so for the next part I'm going to go in with a little bit of black watercolour and a makeup brush, and I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit of a darker tinge around the corners, so it basically blends from the darkness into the more brighter colours.
And now that that's dry, I'm going to go in with some regular black, same again from Model Air, and I'm just going to repaint Jack's shoes so they look a lot more vibrant and polished. And you might have also noticed that I did the yellows in the pumpkin's eyes. That's basically just yellow from Model Colour. And now that Jack's finished, for the next stage I'm going to go in with some black glue from the glue gun, and I'm going to put a small blob on the back. Now the reason I'm going for black glue rather than the normal clear one is just so it blends in with the base, because if you go clear you kind of see the glue and it stands out like a sore thumb, so black is a lot better. So you haven't got very long working time with this, you've literally got only a couple of seconds to try and get it as straight as possible. And then next I'm going to go in with just some regular normal everyday PVA glue, and I'm going to put a tiny little bit of it around the edge seams, and then when we go ahead and add the other bauble in place, that once that's left to dry, that should be nice and secure. And now back in with the black glue, and same again, just another blob on the other side, and then same again. I haven't got very long working time before it solidifies, so it's really important that you get it all to line up, especially the top where the thread needs to go, because you don't want a bit sticking out looking a bit like a sore thumb. So yeah, so there you go, he's nice and secured. So let's go to the next stage.
10 seconds later.
Okay, so now that the bauble is finished, I need to go ahead and add some twine. So I bought this from a local craft store, and I got a variety of different colours so we can add them as we go. So I'm going to start off with going in with some of the black and white twine, because I think that is perfect for Jack. So I'm just going to make sure it goes the same length as my green mat, and then that way they're all going to be exactly the same length. So they'll dangle just nice. So yeah, so just get it through the hole there, and then just curl the end, feed it through, and then pull it nice and taut. And yeah, and then you got yourself a nice Christmas bauble for your Christmas or your Halloween tree. Okay, let's crack on with bauble number 2. Step 2. Zero the dog. Okay, so I started by looking on Thingiverse, and I found the gravestone of Zero, which was uploaded originally by a user called StudSoda3983, and it basically features all the scene from where Jack just walks past the gravestone, taps it, and then Zero flies out from underneath, and that's really what I'd like to incorporate in this build. So obviously I'm not going to fit everything in because it's only a small bauble, but I'm hoping that we can make the gravestone a definite feature. Okay, let's get 3D printing.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Okay, so here are all the parts to the Zero house / gravestone. So I ended up slicing this in half just so it would be easier to 3D print. So the only supports up here on the little cross. So yeah, once we clean this up, we'll go ahead and stick it together, and then we can try and apply it to the base. So in order to glue this, I'm just going to go in with some regular super glue. Okay, let's go ahead and leave that a couple of hours to fully dry.
8 hours later.
Okay, so I went ahead and printed off another base for this. Now, I made it like kind of cobblestoney. Basically, I'm not going to keep that. That's just so when I add modelling clay later on, the clay's got something to hold on to. Because if it was just a flat surface, it'll probably just keep coming apart. So this should work out great. So yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and use some regular super glue and super glue it in place.
No way!
So now that's all nicely glued in place, for the next stage I'm going to go in with just some regular black acrylic, and I'm going to give this a nice base coat. Okay, so now that that's been left to dry, for the next stage I'm going to go in with some natural grey from Model Colour, and we're going to go ahead and give this a dry brush. And now that that's dry, I'm going to go in with a light grey again from Model Colour, and then we're going to give it a very light dry brush just to bring out some of those highlight details.
The following day.
And now that all that is nicely dried, for the next stage we're going to go in with our old friend regular standard Milliput. And now that it's fully mixed, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make a base of bulk. And now we're going to go in with, same again, just black acrylic, and we're going to go ahead and make sure that this has got at least 2 coats, and it's going to get into all the nooks and crannies, and then that's going to work great as a base coat that we can build upon.
20 minutes later.
And now we're going to go back in with, yes, you guessed it, natural grey from Model Colour, and we're going to use a makeup brush, and we're going to give this a nice once over coat.
Okay, so for the next bit I'm going to go ahead and glue this in place with just regular old super glue. Okay, I'll just put this to one side and leave to dry.
More moments later.
And for the next part, we're going to go in with some white from Model Air, and we're going to go ahead and give a general highlight dry brush just to bring out some of those foreground details.
Alright.
And now I'd like to go ahead and try and recreate that iconic looking Tim Burton-esque fence that goes around Zero's gravestone. Now, same again, I haven't got a lot of room to model this, so I can't do the full thing justice, but I wanted to incorporate it a little bit. So I'm just going to go in with some sharp snippers, and I'm going to try and glue these parts in place, and then that will give a little bit of a hint. Yeah, there is a little bit of a fence there, so it's not going to be perfect, but it's better than nothing. And now a quick test, does Zero still fit? And yes, he does. So yeah, so let's go ahead and secure him in place. Same again, regular old super glue. Yep, I think that's going to work really well. So yeah, so for the next stage, let's go ahead and place him in the bauble. So it's going to be the exact same steps that we took previously with the Jack Skeleton bauble. So there's no point in me retelling you the exact same thing again and again. So I'm just going to fast forward through this part. Okay, looking good. So let's go ahead and add some twine. Okay, I like this one, so 2 down, 8 more to go. Step 3, Sally. So, for the next part we're going to crack on with Sally, And I thought this character would work well also in the cemetery scene, because there is a scene in the movie where she runs off to the cemetery and then she sees Jack, and then she's like kind of hiding behind the gravestones, and she sees that Jack's on a bit of a downer, a little bit sad, and that is just a nice moment of the interacting between the two characters. So I'd like to capture that if I can. So yeah, so we're going to go for another graveyard scene. So I'm going to need to make some model and clay sticks. So I'm going to go ahead and recreate the same cobble base that we did for the Zero Dog. Okay, so here we have a nicely fresh printed new base, and this will work really well to hold on to all that milliput later on. So now that we've got our base, let's go ahead and super glue Sally in place.
"15 minutes later."
So now that we've got the base to build upon, for the next stage I'm going to go in and recreate one of the tombstones. So it's very much matching the Jack bauble. So it's not the same tombstone, this one's slightly smaller, but it's going to be the same kind of steps to follow. So it's going to be a black base coat, and then we're going to go in with a natural grey from model colour. And then we're going to go ahead and give it a base coat tone of just general everyday normal grey. And then I went ahead and felt that this was also a little bit on the simple side, so I went ahead and printed another RIP, but this time a little bit smaller, glued it in place, and then once that's dried I then went over with same again natural grey, and then left that to dry, and then we finished it with a nice dry brush of a light grey. So now that that's going to be left to dry, we might as well crack on with good old Sally. Okay, so same as the Jack model, it's just the base coat colours on Sally the model, and it's not very screen accurate, so I'm going to go ahead and repaint it all. So I'm going to start off with a gory red from Game Colour, and I'm going to paint her hair a more screen accurate shade of red. So yeah, let's start the painting montage.
Montage!
Yep, a world of difference there compared to what it used to be. A lot more detail now. So let's crack on with the base. Okay, you guessed it, time for the milliput. So same as the other two, I'm just going to go ahead and use this to build up the bulk, and then we can go ahead and think about adding some extras. And now on to, again, the water smoothing stage. So just going in with a sculpting tool with a little dab of water on it, and then that blends the milliput out beautifully. And then once that's all nicely smoothed, we can go in with that steel brush, and we can go ahead and make those iconic scratch line marks that appear in the whole film. And then to finish things off, we can go in with a sharp scalpel and get any of the areas that we couldn't get to with a brush and add some deeper recesses. So once again, we can go ahead and add a little bit of shading later on. So while the clay is still moist, we're going to go in with that other tombstone and we're going to gently push it into place without disturbing what we've already added. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to add 2 pumpkins. Again, I did these off camera just to try and save time. And these will really help connect this scene with the scene of Jack's bauble, if that makes any sense.
24 hours later.
So now that the medley pot is nicely dry and everything is securely fastened in place to the point I can't remove them, for the next stage I'm going to go in with just everyday normal black acrylic paint, take me time, get into all the nooks and crannies. It's going to be a nightmare to get under the pumpkins and around the tombstone without getting black on it, but we'll persevere and see how we get on. So yeah, so I'm going to try and give it at least 2 coats and then leave it to dry, and then we can crack on with some grey or natural grey, should I say, from Model Colour. And yeah, same again, just same makeup brush, give it a general once over, not too thick, because we don't want to get it into the black recesses. So just a quick once over, leave it to dry. And then once dry, we can then go in with some light tone grey from Model Colour, and then just give a general dry brush highlight to it. And then once that's done, we can go ahead and super glue the underside part of the bauble, and then leave it a few hours to fully dry.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Okay, so in with the thick green now. We're going to go ahead and add green to, again, the stalks or the stems. Still don't know what to call these things. But yeah, just a general once over coat, and then leave it to dry. And then maybe give it a highlight with something a little bit brighter.
For the next part, I'm going to go in with some black watercolour and a fine makeup brush, and I'm going to add a dark transition around the edges so it blends from the darkness into the light.
And now I'm going to go in with more black, and I'm going to tidy up our shoes where we accidentally dry brushed over it, and a few more touch-up parts here and there, and we can crack on with the next step.
The next step.
So, same again, no point describing what's going on here because you've seen it twice before. I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward. So last but not least, we're going to go in with the black and white twine, and we're going to go ahead and do the exact same step. So yeah, fast forward. Step 4. Santa Jack. So here we have the main figures that I bought, And in the last video we did the first three, so for this bauble we're going to be cracking on with Santa Jack, as you can see right here. So I really like the scene in the film where he's going down the chimneys, so I thought I would try and incorporate that in the bauble. So I went into matter control and I designed a very simple, very just to the point chimney that we can then 3D print, and then we have a base to build upon. So now that we made it, let's get 3D printing.
Three hours later.
Okay, so here it is, all printed. Unfortunately, with it being such a small scale, the individual bricks didn't print as good as I was hoping. So you can see them a little bit, but once we give this like a layer of paint, you'll lose that. So I'm just gonna have to paint the detail on that. I'd rather do that than like reprint this again. So yeah, so let's just do a size comparison. So obviously we'll be cutting Jack off this base maybe. So does that still fit in the bauble? Yep, seems to. Yeah, I think that'll work really well. So for the next stage, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clean off these supports and then give it just a once over with a file.
2,000 years later.
Okay, so the plan is, obviously Jack's going to be situated here, so it looks like he's going to get ready to go down the chimney. I know the chimney is a little bit on a small scale, but we all know, well, we all know that it's possible in the world of animation. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave him on this base, because there's no point cutting him off, because this is going to get covered in air dry modelling clay to make it mimic snow. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue that guy roughly about there. Okay, just going to go ahead and leave this to dry.
A little later.
Okay, to start things off, I'm going to go in with some surface primer, and I'm going to go ahead and give this a once over nice simple coat and get into all the nooks and crannies. And then what this will do is make a base layer that we can build paint upon. So basically just gives the paint something to hold on to rather than just the filament. So yeah, so just going to take my time, get into all nooks and crannies, and then we can call this one good. So because I had some surface primer left over, I decided that this would be a good opportunity to paint Jack's sack of presents or nightmare toys, because it would just make it look a little bit more realistic and natural rather than just like a base coat vacuum brown plastic. So yeah, so no point wasting material, so I went back in and give it a nice simple coat. So once that's been left to dry, for the next stage I'm going to go in with a light grey from Model Colour, and we're going to go ahead and make the bit of concrete that goes between the bricks. So same again, this is just a general highlight that we can build upon as we go, but for the most part we really need to get that detail back that we lost in the 3D printer. And once that dried, I then went in with some orange rust from Model Air, and then we're going to go ahead and repaint the bricks. Now this will really make it look a lot more vibrant and a lot more traditional.
5 minutes later.
So for the next stage we need to go ahead and recreate some snow. So I'm going to use some of this stuff, which is super fine white milliput, which is just like regular milliput, but when you mix equal measures together it makes a white clay that obviously dries white as well, so this is going to work great for snow.
So at this point I'm going to go in with a little bit of water, because a little tiny bit of water on milliput really goes a long way to smoothing it out and make it look a lot more natural. So a very important step.
Day 2.
So now that the main body of clay is fully dry, I'm going to go in with a little bit more white milliput, and I'm going to do like a top layer of snow where it's settled on top of the chimney, and that'll really sell the scene that it's like unspoilt crisp snow on the top of this rooftop.
Okay guys, we'll go ahead and we'll leave that to dry.
8 hours later.
So now that it's a lot more easier to handle, for the next part I'm going to go in with some gory red from Game Colour, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to make Jack's Santa reds on his costume look a lot more vibrant and rich. So for the next stage I'm going to go in with some of this stuff, which is what I have left of some scenic snow scatter, and what perfect way to use the rest of that packet up than to make this look a lot more like unspoilt snow. So I'm just going to go in with just some regular everyday PVA glue. I'm going to take a brush, make sure it gets into all the little nooks and crannies of where all the white snow should be, and maybe a little bit on his boots as well. And then yeah, we're going to sprinkle it on and we're going to leave it to dry, and then that should make this look a lot more realistic.
3,000 whoop-whoos later.
And now we go ahead and we can add the underside part that we printed off in the previous video. So this is basically just so it sits natural in the bottom of the bauble. So if you didn't see that in the last video, no big worries. It's literally just an extra part that I 3D printed that just needs to be glued into place. So for the next stage I'm going to go in with some UV resin, and I'm going to paint the underside of the bauble, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint the inside of the bauble as well, so it gets like this like frosty effect. So this is just a test theory. I've never done this before. It could go beautifully brilliantly or it could go horribly wrong, so only time will tell. So yes, I'm just going to give it half a coat on the inside first, and then half the bauble, and then we can get the UV torch to harden it, and then we can hopefully work on the other side and make this work. And now into the UV curing machine, which is really just a box with a lot of aluminum foil everywhere and a black light, but it does the job. And yeah, so I'm just going to leave it in there for about 30 minutes, and then hopefully that should make this all the resin hard.
Day 3.
Okay guys, so here it is all hardened, but I'm not too sure I like that effect. At first I thought it was kind of cool, but there's like a big blob of it right here that kind of distracts from Jack. So I'm thinking about cracking this open and trying again with a brand new bauble. Okay, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Okay, so this is kind of still sticky, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to harden this, and then we'll come back to it.
2 very boring minutes later.
And finally I'm going to go ahead with my trusty glue gun and some black glue sticks, because clear would show up underneath. I'm going to go ahead and put a blob of hot glue on the bottom of this, stick it in place, leave it to dry, and then we can add another blob to the other side, a little hint of PVA glue around the edges, and then squidge it all together, and we can go ahead and add the bow, and yeah, then we're done.
And now that that is nicely secured in place, for the next stage I'm going to go in with this white and red twine, or string if you like. And the other three in the last video were all black and white, so with him being Santa Jack in this one, I thought we needed to make it a little bit different. So the red and white to the rescue. So same again, just going to make it the size of the green mat, so they're all universally roughly the same size. And then feed it through the little hole, and then twist it around, tie a knot, and then we have a really nice bauble. So same again, can go on your Christmas tree or your Halloween tree. Okay, so now let's crack on with the next bauble. Step 5. The mayor. Okay, so I really wanted to incorporate the mayor because I think he's such a big part of the movie, but unfortunately they didn't make him in the set that I bought. So I had a look around online and I went to cult3d.com and I managed to find this file, which was originally uploaded by a user called Vaddy, and it looks like a really nice model. So if it'll shrink down into a bauble, it remains to be seen, but I thought, let's give it a chance. So I purchased it, downloaded it, and now it's in my slicing software, and I'm going to shrink it down so it should fit the bauble plus the base. And yeah, once the file's ready, let's get 3D printing. Okay, so here are all the parts printed off. Now there was a little bit of a mistake. The top part of his hat is snapped off, so that'll have to be re-glued in place. But the rest of him seems to have printed okay, so I just need to go ahead and take all his supports off and give it a good clean.
Thousands of tears later.
Okay, so now it's nicely cleaned and polished. We're going to go in with some wood filler and just a general tiny little bit of it on the end of my fingers, and I'm just going to rub it all around the model, and then that will work its way into any imperfections, or it'll just go in amongst the layer lines and it smooths it all out. Same again, once that is left to harden, and I'll then go back in with another file, smooth that down again, and then I best think about making a start on gluing the breakage on his hat. So once that's been left to fully dry, same again, sand off any excess where the super glue might have spilled over, so it's all nice and flat. And a little bit more tinkering, and I believe we can give this a coat of white prime.
1 white prime later.
So now that that's been given a base coat of a white prime, for the next stage we're going to go in with a UV resin, and I'm just going to give him a general once over coat. Now what this will do is it'll do two important jobs. One, it'll make the layer lines less visible, and two, with there being a breakage on his hat, and then like the brim of the hat is sliced separate from his head, and the head is sliced separate from the neck, this basically will unify it all as one piece. So basically it kind of just one coat brings everything together, and yeah, it should be a lot more nicer to handle now.
Eventually.
So after about 40 minutes in the UV curing chamber and then another quick white prime, he's now ready for some much needed paint. So I'm going to start off by just adding a few little bits of to try and gauge out where these eyes need to go. So I'm just going to go in with a light blue and map out the back side of his face. So if that makes no sense, basically this character, when he's happy, is his front face, which is more like a creamish pinkish colour, and then when he gets worried it flips round to the like grey / light mucky white colour, but obviously his eyes and his lips are a totally different shade. So we're going to paint the back side of the face first.
You get the idea.
Okay, so there's quite a fair bit to paint on this guy, so instead of breaking everything down, I'm just going to do a fast forward montage.
Montage. Montage over.
So for the next part we need to crack on with his base. Now in the previous video I designed this like cobblestone base. Now the reason that was originally made was because I knew I was going to be making this character, and I really wanted him to be in the like a street scene. So the previous 3 baubles were all set in the cemetery. So now we're going to break out into the main street, so hence the cobblestones. So yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and 3D print this, and then we can start on the next step.
The next step.
So for the next part, I'm going to go in, you guessed it, with natural grey from model colour, and we're going to go ahead and give this a nice base coat. And next in with off-white from Game Colour, and then a very light dry brush over the top just to bring out some of those lovely details. And then I'm going to go in with a dark grey and a detailing brush, and I'm going to take my time and get in between the cobbles just so it adds a little bit of contrast.
Okay, so I thought I might go ahead and glue him into position. The reason is he's quite delicate and quite hard to work on, so I thought if I secure him in place, then I can hold this, which will give me much better access to the figure, I suppose. So I'm just going to go in with just some regular everyday super glue and glue the feet. Okay, that seems to have done the trick. So in order to secure them in place, I thought I would go in with some more pumpkins. So these were pre-painted off camera to save time. So I thought I might add a strew around him like he was the mayor judging the annual pumpkin competition or something like that. Because we all know they have them. So let's get sticking some pumpkins.
So these pumpkins are going to go a long way to help in keeping this figure in place, because if he's going to be in a bauble and maybe potentially knocked about in some way, I don't really trust that figure being kept in place by those tiny little feet of his. So this is a good way of not only making it like resemble Halloween Town, obviously he's a mayor, so he probably would be judged in the competition, and also it's a really good way of propping this character and keeping him in place. So yeah, so a bit of super glue on the pumpkins for the base, and then a little bit of super glue later on from the pumpkin connecting to the mayor. So yeah, nice and secure now.
Yeah, I'm really happy with this. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and leave it to fully dry, and then we can crack on with the paint job.
Approximately 10 hours later.
So in order to add some extra details, I went in with a fine black marker and did everything from the lines for his teeth to sharpening up some of the details around his eyes, his nose, etc. The spider on his necktie, and then also some black lining to get across definition on his clothing. And now I'm going to go in with some just general red acrylic and a cocktail stick, and I'm going to add some red parts. So there's these like black widow markings on the spider's abdomen on his necktie, and then it turns out the character also randomly has red nail polish on his fingers, which I didn't originally know until I studied some high definition
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
pictures of the character. So yeah, the more you make these models, the more you learn. And now we're on to the black glue gun stage. So same again, no point me telling you what's going on here, might as well just fast forward because you've seen it plenty of times before. Okay, I'm thinking this guy's looking pretty cool, and I'm really happy that the size of that hat just fits in place. So yeah, let's crack on with the string next. So once again, I'm going to go in with the black and white just so it matches the others, and it's going to be the same size as the green mat, so it all matches. Yeah, I like this one. Okay, on to bauble number 6. Step 6, Oggie Boogie. So, to start this off, I took him into the spray booth with some light up spray glow-in-the-dark spray paint from Crealdo. And this is good stuff, but you got to give it multiple coats. So I went ahead and gave Oggie Boogie 4 coats, because I wanted to try and capture that glow-in-the-dark neon version that we get introduced to first when we first see him in the film. So yeah, so 4 coats, leave them probably about 2 hours to dry in between each coat, and then you should be good to go. And once everything had fully dry, I then brought it back in the house, and I decided to use a drill bit to drill a channel hole so we can go ahead and drill and pin this guy to his base. About the base. This was a bit of a bittersweet moment for me because I did a lot of planning, a lot of printing, a lot of sanding, a lot of painting, and I finally made a base that I was really happy with, and then I realised that I did the math calculations pretty wrong. But I basically made it a little bit too big for the bauble. Well, a lot too big for the bauble, if I'm honest. So yeah, after probably about 50 billion years of crying, I decided to take it all apart again and start again.
You have to fix it.
Broke my heart having to destroy this and start off fresh. But, well, you live and learn, I guess. Maybe this is why Jack didn't want Oggie Boogie on the surface. Maybe he's just really hard to work with.
Leave that no-account Oogie Boogie out of this!
So, now that I need a new base, I decided to go with a swirl pattern. So, the reason I went for this was I re-watched that part of the film where Oggie Boogie is first introduced, and we see him like hook Santa up and hoist him up to the ceiling. In order to get him up there, he cranks this black and yellow lever that I thought would work really good as a base. So yeah, so went into matter control, made it from a swirl pattern that I found online, and made it fit the same diameter as the bottom of the bauble. And yeah, now that we've made that, we'll go ahead and 3D print it.
Eight hours later.
Okay, so here it is, all printed off and added to a new base. And for the next stage, I'm going to go in with some moon yellow from Game Colour, and I'm just going to give it a couple of coats. And now I'm going to go in with black from Model Air, and you guessed it, I'm going to take my time and I'm going to paint the inside moving out so we get that nice swirl pattern. And now that that has been left to dry, for the next stage I need to go ahead and break Oggie Boogie off that circular spiked base. But before I do that, I'm going to remove the little dice that I made. I might have glossed over that in this tutorial. Basically, I made two little red dice with black spots on it that we see Oggie throw in the actual film. So it's been a little bit stubborn coming off this this base. He really didn't want to come off, and those spikes really didn't help me holding it. So yeah, it's a bit of force, got there in the end. So yeah, so I'm gonna go in and take that peg back out so we can reuse that again, and then we're gonna have to drill another channel hole in the new base, and then we can go ahead and re-add Oggie Boogie. And now he's finally ready for the hot glue gun treatment. So same again, black glue from the glue gun. You know the drill by now, I'll just fast forward. Yep, this one was a pain, but I do like the finished result. So I really do like that new base. So yes, let's crack on to the twine string part. So same again, just going to use some twine, but this time I'm going to do the green and white version because I thought that would match Oggie Boogie a bit better than the black and the white. And because he's a bit of an outcast, I thought he's a bit of a rebel. He's not going to play by the rules, so yeah, we need a different string for him. And green and white seems to work beautifully. So yeah, so same again, just the same size as the mat. I'm gonna twist it around, make it nice and tight, and yeah, we've got ourselves a nice Christmas ornament bauble. Okay, so a bit of a bonus round. I know some of you will be interested in the glow-in-the-dark feature. So let's go ahead and see what it's like. Because I'm the boogeyman. Yep, that works really good. I'm really happy with that. Step 7. Lock, shock and barrel. Okay, so in order to start this build off, I'm going to go in with some natural grey from Model Colour, and this is a pre-made base that I 3D printed. So it's a little bit different to what we built in the other videos. I just wanted a little bit more of a variety, so I went with like a kind of weird, kind of tiled floor system. So yeah, so I'm just going to go in, so it's been base coated in black, I forgot to mention, so I'm going to go in with natural grey now and let's give it a good dry brush. And now I'm going to go in with a light grey from Model Colour, and then I'm just going to go in with a stipple brush, makeup brush, and I'm just going to add a tiny little bit on there, and then I'm just going to do some very light dry brushing just to give off a little bit of a highlight.
Soon after.
So in order to make the three characters of Lock, Shock and Barrel,
Lock,
Shock.
barrel.
I went ahead and bought one of these, which is a Funkoverse Pop game expansion. I'm not too sure how you're actually supposed to play the game, but we don't really want it for the game, we want it for these three characters here. So let's open this up and have a quick look. Okay, not too sure what those are, but I'm pretty sure they'll come in useful for a future build. And a couple of little mini bases. Same again, I can see them coming in handy at some point. And some kind of tokens. And then some kind of card game. So we don't need any of that. Okay, so apparently these guys stack on top of each other's heads for some reason. Not too sure why there is, but obviously we don't need it for that. So all these little holes will need plugging back up. So now that we have our base, let's do a quick test just to see if these guys would all fit on together. Okay, it's going to be a bit of a squeeze, but I'm going to say yes. Yes, I can see that maybe working. So, yeah, so first things first, I'm going to use some Aves epoxy and I'm going to fill in these gaps at the top. Okay, so the witch doesn't seem to have a hole to connect to, so that's a nice little bonus. So yes, I'll go ahead and leave these two guys to fully dry, and then we can go ahead and cover over with some paint.
3 hours later.
So now that that is fully dry, I'm going to go in with some sick green from the game colour, and we're going to start by painting Barrel's hair, well, green. So now on to Shock, and unfortunately I didn't have the right colour for his hair, so I had to mix his colour, so we're going to have to go ahead and make sure that we get this right first time. So I'm going to give it a first cut first, hit with a hairdryer, and then second coat, again hairdryer, and then hopefully by the third coat we should have all areas covered and we don't have to worry about colour matching in the future.
5 hours later.
Okay, so we're going ahead and we've got these like little pegs underneath. Now, in hindsight, I probably, if I knew the exact measurements of these, I could have probably channeled a little hole for these guys to sit straight into. But I printed these off before I ordered these online, so or before these turned up, should I say. So I'm just going to go in with some snippers, and I'm just going to use some regular everyday super glue, and I'm going to stick them in place.
So thankfully they all did fit on the base. They are a little bit cramped, but they are all there. So we just need to go ahead and check it with the bauble now, and just to make sure that it's not going, the witch's hat's not going to clash with the back of the bauble. And as you can see there, it's a nice fit. It worked out really nice. So yes, I'm over the moon with this.
3,000 whoop-whoos later.
So for the next part, I'm just going to go in with general everyday black acrylic paint, and same again, a stipple makeup brush, and I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to tidy up some of the edges where some of the dry brush had like spilled over, I suppose. So just a nice little tidy up, and that should go a long way to making this look a lot more presentable. And now we're on to the adding it into the bauble black glue gun stick stage, if that made any sense. So yeah, so you've seen this in the past two videos. If you haven't seen the past two videos, this is you just jumped in straight at the end. That's totally fine. Basically just a black glue stick and a hot glue gun, and I'm going to put a small blob of it on the back of the bauble, and then I'm going to make sure that it's situated upright, or as straight as I can possibly get it, into side A part of the bauble. And then I haven't got long to work on this. I've only got a few seconds before the glue starts to harden. So yeah, just keeping it in place, making sure it's stuck nice and tight, and then once that's done, another blob of glue on the front part of the underside of the base, and then we can add part B bauble, and then once A and B's together, we should have a nice display bauble.
No way!
So for the next stage, we need to go ahead and we need to add the twine. Now, seeing as there's 3 different characters, I had a look, and thankfully I had a twine with 3 colours in it. So red for the little devil guy, I think that's Lock, green for the witch, which is Shock, and white for the skeleton, which is Barrel. So this is perfect.
Okay guys, so same as before, I'm just going to use my green mat as a measuring device. So just one length across, cut it out, feed it through the hole, twist it around, make a nice taut knot in one end, and then these should all be universally the same size. Okay, I like how these ones turned out. Step 8. Shadow on the moon. So for the next build, I really want to incorporate the I'm the shadow at the moon at night, which is part of the intro song of the movie. So I started things off by going on thingiverse.com, and I found this, which was originally uploaded by a user named Why So Frail. And what I ended up doing is, once I downloaded this, I then went into matter control on the PC, and I ended up cutting off the edges so it was nice and circular, and then I added like a natural bevel shape, the exact same diameter, and then fused those together, and then decided to go ahead and print off 2. And then once printed and smoothed down, it was a trip into the shed, and then I decided to give it 2 or 3 coats of a nice white prime.
A little later.
Okay, so for some reason the white spray paint dried a little bit yellowish for some reason. I don't know if it's an old can or something. So I decided to spruce it up with some white from Game Colour, and then just basically getting into all the parts of the moon. So that's including like the eyes and the mouth, and then obviously in and around his hood, etc. Ah, damn it, why not just do the whole thing?
3 hours later.
So for the next part, I want to go ahead and I want to make this glow in the dark. So I'm going to go in with some of this stuff, which is glow in the dark poster paint.
And for the next part, I'm going to go in with some bone white from Game Colour, and we're going to go ahead and start painting the shadow of the moon. And now I'm going to go in with more of that glow in the dark paint, but we're going to go ahead and coat the whole thing.
Soon after.
So now that we have both sides painted, for the next stage we need to go ahead and add these and glue these together. So the best thing to do that is just regular old standard super glue.
Moments later.
So I had to shave a little bit off the sides of this, which left the original green colour of the filament. So for the next stage I'm going to go in with a permanent black marker, and I'm just going to add a black highlight around the edge, just so we can hide that luminous green, and then that'll make it look a little bit more professional. So now that that's done, we can go in and we can add this into its bauble.
10 seconds later.
So this fits just snug, but in order to make sure it definitely keeps in place, I thought I'd best go over with just a very light hint of PVA glue, and then that should do two jobs. Keep this in place, and it'll also help secure the part B part of the bauble to the part A, so part A, part A, B together, and we can go ahead and leave that to dry, and all should be secure. So now that that's done, all that's left is to go ahead and add the string / twine. So in order to match the same colour scheme, I went with white and like a beigey brown colour. So that should complement this beautifully. So same again, just one length of the green mat, so these are all universally the same size. And then just feed it through the hole, double it on itself, tie a nice taut knot at the end, and then you have yourself a nice bauble.
Later, in the void.
Okay guys, so I know some of you will be interested in the glow in the dark feature, so let's go ahead and turn the lights off. Okay, so not as bright as the Oggie Boogie that we did, but after a good day's worth of charge, I can see this shining quite well. And also I didn't want it too bright because all these little little patterns kind of reminisces of the craters on the moon. So yeah, so happy little accident there. So yeah, happy with that.
Okay, on to bauble number 9. Step 9. Oggie Boogie version 2. Okay, so I found this happy little fella on thingiverse.com, and it's another Oggie Boogie. Now I know what you're thinking, Frank, you've already made one of these in the last video. Yeah, that was the neon green version of Oggie Boogie, and we later on see that Oggie Boogie's also like in a different light. He's made of cloth. So I thought I'd go ahead and print off this guy, and he was originally uploaded by Body 3D, and I've decided to go ahead and print this guy off in filament.
6 hours later.
Okay, so here he is, all printed off, and I have to admit, at first glance, I am rather liking the look of him. So yeah, so I'm just going to go in with various tools, and I'm going to go ahead and clean all this up.
70 years later.
Okay, so here he is, a lot more cleaner now. So there is a lot of cleanup work I still need to do on this, but for the most part I'm happy with it. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill some like imperfections in with some wood filler, like on the back there, and then we can skip to the next part, which will be a black base coat.
Later that night.
So for the black base coat, I'm going to go ahead and mix some regular black acrylic with some PVA glue, mix it all together, and then this will work not only as a base coat paint, but with having the glue attached, it'll also give this a nice fixed surface, and it will also hide some of those imperfections and layer lines. So a very important step. And once that dried, I then went in with some medium acrylic brown, and I'm going to go in with a makeup stipple brush, and I'm going to go ahead and add a very light dry brush over the edge of this, and then that will bring out some much needed details.
Alright.
And once that dried, I then went in with some light brown from Model Air, and then I did the exact same step, but this time in some key part areas. So same again, just goes a long way to bringing out some much needed highlight details. And once more the exact same step, and even lighter, but this time with Bone White from Game Colour. Yep, that'll do nicely.
So now that we've got Mr. Oggie Boogie looking a little bit more like, well, Oggie Boogie, for the next stage we need to go ahead and recreate a base for him to go inside the bauble. Now in the last video we made a different version of Oggie Boogie, which is the green neon glow in the dark version, and unfortunately I did make a base for him that is representative of the version of we see in the film where Santa lands on it and then Oggie Boogie spinning him around, etc. So I wanted to create that, and I did create that, but unfortunately I made it a little bit too big and it didn't fit into the bauble, so I had to take it all apart. So seeing as we do an Oggie Boogie again, but this time is a smaller scale, I thought we could recreate and save this part that we made before. So yeah, so in theory he is going to go there. Now the underside bit and the oval base, I ended up using them on the other Oggie Boogie. So those aren't available. So I'd looked through my bit box and I did find this, and I'm not too sure what it's to. Could be anything, but I thought this part here I really like the look of. So I think that it's not perfectly screen accurate, but it's good enough for this. So yeah, so I could either use this end here or I could use the smaller end up here. I might end up using the smaller end maybe, I don't know. I suppose the bigger version does fit nicely. It's not screen accurately perfect, but I don't know, it'll do. So yeah, so this is a base to one of the others that I'm making, so I'll need to see if, or eyeball if all this can be fit into a bauble. Okay, that's it's a little bit sad, but yeah, I haven't really got any more room to play with. See if this can be closed up. Okay, so it will fit, but I have no room to model the underside, so it's pretty much, I think I've only got about that much space to model. So yeah, not great. I suppose I could maybe cut just this lip off here and see if that works, or am I overthinking it actually? Okay guys, that seems to fit a bit better. That seems to be a bit better. So yeah, so that's the way we're gonna have to go, which is just one of these. So yeah, seeing as we're doing them neon colours, I'm gonna go ahead and repaint this to look a little bit more vibrant.
Okay, so after a lot of messing about, I ended up with this as a base, but the orange, or the translucent luminous orange, wasn't working for me. So I decided to go in with a purple colour shift titled Emerald Green Mauve. It's a hell of a name. And I just decided to go over and give this a couple of coats, and then that will make this like a nice shimmer effect, purple to green colour scheme, which will work a lot better than the translucent orange. And now that that's done, for the next stage I'm going to go in with a very fine detailing brush and some regular black acrylic, and we're going to go ahead and make an interesting yellow and black pattern underneath the main circular spiked base. So while we go ahead and leave the base to fully dry, for the next stage I want to go ahead and add two little white dice that we see Oggie Boogie throw in the movie, and with his arm being up in the air, it kind of looks like he's getting ready to throw something. So I thought dice would be the perfect option. So yeah, so this is just little bits of milliput that I just rolled out and then squished into a small little cube shaped, leave it to fully dry, and then ran each surface area over a little bit of sandpaper, and then same again, left it to dry, and then that goes a long way to making some cute little dice. So while we've got the super glue out, we might as well go ahead and super glue Mr. Oggie Boogie to that yellow base. So I have to get him as centre as possible, because if he's a little bit to the left or to the right, backwards or forwards, the top of his hood might clash with the circumference of the inside bauble, if that makes any sense. So yeah, so I'm just going to try and eyeball it and get it as centred as possible. So now that everything is nice and dry, for the next stage I'm going to go in with a cocktail stick and some black acrylic, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint some of the numbers on the dice.
Yeah, baby, yeah!
And now I'm going to go in with a detailing black pen, and I'm going to go ahead and get into the in-between parts of the seam lines on Oggie Boogie's cloth slash skin, I suppose. So yeah, so this is the best way to just get black nice and straight in that deep recess, and then once all that is done, we can then go in with some white acrylic and we can go ahead and add the stitching.
Ain't nobody got time for that!
So now that part A and part B is finished, we can go ahead and add A and B together. So we can go ahead and leave it to fully dry, and after a couple of hours we can think about adding it inside the infamous bauble.
3 hours later.
Yay, infamous bauble time. So you know the drill by now, black glue gun on the bottom, nice and squidgy, stick it in place, get it nice and straight, and then PVA glue around the edge, and then squish the other edge, and then we have a nice bauble. And now we're on to the final stage, and once again I'm going to go in with the white and beige coloured twine, because obviously this is the cloth version of Oggie Boogie, not the green version, so I thought this would work a lot better. So yeah, same again, just one length of the green mat, and then stick it through the hole, double on itself, nice taut knot, and then you have yourself a nice bauble. Okay, I like how this one turned out. Now on to our final bauble. Step 10. Jack's Skull. Okay, so once again, found this on thingiverse.com, and it was uploaded by a user called Dan3D Maker, and it focuses on just basically a Christmas bauble of Jack's head. So I brought it into matter control. Now we don't need the oval part, because obviously this is going to be encased inside a bauble. So what I ended up doing was cutting it off the top, and then I took it into Blender and I smoothed the top of the dome down so we didn't see any connection points. And then it was over into my slicing software, and in order to print this off, I thought it would be easier if I printed it off by splitting this directly in half, and then we can lay the two halves on its side, and then it can print upwards, so we don't have to worry about any pesky supports getting everywhere. And yeah, so now that we've got that all laid out, let's go ahead and print it.
Soon after.
Yep, that'll do nicely.
3,000 whoop-hoos later.
So a quick thing to add, I also went ahead and made a neck to go with Jack, just so it stands upright in the bauble. So that's been printed off as well, so let's get to the white prime stage. So for the next part, I'm going to go in with some off-white from Game Colour, and then this will go a long way to giving it a bit more of a bony white rather than a static bright white.
5 minutes later.
So even though I have done a lot of sanding, you can still see that seam line running through his face, mainly on the top of his head there, running down, and then from the connecting to the back of the neck. So not ideal. It's not a game changer. It's just a little gripe that I wouldn't mind trying to iron out now rather than adding details and then it annoys me later. So yeah, so for the next stage I'm going to go in with some UV resin, and I might mix some off-white with it, and then hopefully that'll really make this pop.
Pop. Pop, 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 pop.
Okay, so at this point I then realised that mixing acrylic paints directly with the resin doesn't work ideally brilliantly. Thankfully I didn't put too much paint in this, so it wasn't a total disaster. It did end up drying, but it did stay quite sticky for a good few days, longer than I thought it would have. So yeah, so if you are going to colour change it, I would say stick with powders or like grinded up chalk or something like that rather than paint itself. So yeah, I should have known better if I'm truthfully honest, but I just thought that this would have worked at the time, but in hindsight, yeah, it kind of didn't go quite as according to plan.
4 to 6 days later.
So after spending a good 4 to 6 days of just constant in front of the windowsill, and then on a night a couple of hours in the UV chamber, finally the resin had hardened to the point that we could work with it again.
1 pair of pants later.
Okay, so after a good week's worth of curing, we can finally get back to the painting stage. So back in with a fine detail brush, some regular black acrylic. I'm going to take my time and I'm going to paint all of Jack's attributes.
Alright.
And now a little bit of touch up again with some off-white, just to tidy up some of the edges, and then we can get to the bauble stage. Okay guys, so same steps as before, so the only difference this time is I'm going in with clear translucent glue, because obviously the black would have showed up like sore thumb. So yeah, so just going to sit in place and fast forward as usual. And yes, you guessed it, back onto the string/twine. So same again, black and white, because obviously it's Jack, those are his colours. 1 green mat's worth of length, cut off the end, you know the drill by now. 1 nice decent bauble. Okay guys, hope you've enjoyed this one. So, let's get to the overall thoughts.
Overall thoughts.
Okay guys, so here they are. 10 individual baubles, all based on characters from the cult classic Tim Burton film, The Nightmare Before Christmas. And each one of these has been a very unique build. Some of them went together beautifully and really easily. Some of them I could have thrown out the window. They were a pain in the butt. I'm still looking at you, Oggie Boogie. But all in all, I've really enjoyed working on these, and I am looking forward to giving these away as a Christmas present to a friend. So, if you've enjoyed this 3-part series, please hit that like button, share on Facebook and Twitter, because those new people find the YouTube channel, which I'm always appreciative. Thank you for any help. If you have any comments, comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you haven't already, please smash that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future builds. And if you want to be a really awesome viewer, please take 5 minutes to check out my Patreon page, where with your help we can do these videos full time rather than part time, which means a lot more videos and content for you and a lot more work for me. And if you've enjoyed these and you want to see more unique Christmas baubles, please let me know in the description below so I know to crack on and do some more for next Christmas or something, or Halloween maybe. And once again, I'm Francis Gray, thank you for watching and I will see you in the next build. Thank you very much.